Greetings all, and welcome to the 10th episode of TM Technical Movement. For today, we will be looking at the Psychic Fangs, Synchronoise, Eerie Spell, Ball and Luster Purge attacks, and the roleplay, skill swap, Imprison, ally switch, and miracle eye techniques. The Psychic Fangs attack is effectively a crunch attack that has been slightly altered in order to accommodate the unique properties of a different elemental energy. In this case, the energy in question is psychic energy. As such, the Psychic Fangs attack is essentially nothing more than a crunch attack performed while the user's sharp teeth are coated in a field of psychic energy instead of an infusion of anti-positive energy. While similar elemental-based binding attacks can take a little while to prepare and therefore have a small chance of missing, this attack can be formed by beasts like Bruxish and Screamtail readily due to their natural psychic powers and thus allows them to deliver the attack at a moment's notice in close quarters. Due to the heavy infusion of psychic energy into the teeth when using this attack, the move is slightly stronger than a basic crunch attack, and while the move lacks the defense-lowering attributes of its base move, it does come with an extra effect that makes the attack useful in tactical fights. As it turns out, the energy waves that propagate through the teeth of the user when they're using their Psychic Fangs attack resonate with the same energy waves used to construct the defensive barriers featured in the Reflect, Light Screen, and Aurora Veil techniques, literally shaking the barriers to pieces and effectively destroying them when the attack is delivered. This might not be enough on its own to make a Pokémon incredibly powerful and always worth using, but it does nonetheless give them a solid attack that can take down an opponent's defensive measures if they rely on such barriers for protection, which in turn helps to explain when the move was converted into TR97 for the Silph Call's first line of TRs, and then TM63 for the 9th generation line of TMs. Since an opponent needs to utilize its teeth or fangs to execute a Psychic Fangs attack, striking or otherwise damaging their mouths and head cannot produce or negate the damage dealt by this attack. Otherwise, however, the attack is exceptionally difficult to dodge in close quarters. Strong metallic armor can, however, help reduce or negate the damage dealt by this attack, but weaker metallic armor and rocky armor in general are unlikely to perform as well on their own. The Psychic Fangs attack is a rare enough move that most trainers won't have to worry about it, but if the opposition is supporting a beast with access to this attack, only strong defenses and a lack of reliance on Reflect, Light Screen, and Aurora Veil techniques will be able to mitigate its damaging and secondary effects in a fight. The Synchronoise attack is believed to have originally been developed by a limited number of Pokémon as a way of countering the powers of other Pokémon of similar types by striking with a powerful move that would target them and only them. As such, the Synchronoise itself is a dense wave of psychic energy that is specifically tuned to only attack opponents that are the same type as the user and takes into account both types of the user as a dual-type Pokémon. The Synchronoise attack is exceptionally powerful, but it is limited in that it is of little use if the opposition doesn't have nearby Pokémon that are of the same type. Because of its concentrated nature though, the Synchronoise attack can attack all nearby Pokémon in battle, only suffering a 25% drop in base power if it strikes multiple targets. This can make the attack dangerous to use if a nearby ally shares at least one type of the user, but for its sheer simplicity and ease of execution, the Synchronoise attack can still prove to be useful when applied correctly in battle, especially since it is affected by items such as King's Rocks. Unless you have a Pokémon of a different type than the opposition, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the Synchronoise attack. Strong metallic armor, however, can help reduce or negate the damage dealt by this attack, though weaker metallic armor and rocky armor in general are unlikely to perform as well on their own. The Synchronoise attack is not exactly versatile enough to make a significant impact in battle, but for its ability to strike multiple targets alone and deal incredible amounts of damage, it is still a dangerous move that can only be effectively countered by not having any Pokémon out that match the opposition's type, though strong defenses can still help this if this is not an option. Considered to be the signature attack of Galarian Slowking, the Eerie Spell attack involves users speaking an unusual incantation that unleashes a massive burst of psychic power against them to inflict damage. As a consequence of the strange manner in which Galarian Slowpoke evolved into Galarian Slowking, much of the power dynamic between said Slowpoke and Shoulder attached to them is flipped entirely, with the Shoulder taking charge of the fusion. This results in the creatures being able to utilize their psychic powers in ways that are more than a bit unusual, and the Eerie Spell attack is the perfect representation of this. In executing this attack, the user speaks a couple of indecipherable incantations around her while focusing its psychic power, creating a series of runes in the air out of psychic energy. This is then released as a concentrated burst of energy that encircles the target with these visual incantations before blasting them with the full force of the psychic energy contained within to deal damage. The attack itself is only moderately powerful, about the same as a Psy Shock attack, but while it can be affected by items like King's Rocks, what really makes it stand out is the after effects of the attack. As it turns out, the incantation in question is actually one that is meant to drain the stamina of the opponent as it hits, so when the attack successfully connects, it will always drain 3 power points from the move the opposition last used, helping to make this otherwise underwhelming move a more powerful tactical tool that can rapidly reduce the capacity of the opposition to use its moves to the fullest and hinder its overall performance over the course of a long battle. Due to its use of psychic energy to inflict damage, there's no way to directly counter or dodge the Eerie Spell attack. Strong metallic armor, however, can't help reduce or negate the damage dealt by this attack, though weaker metallic armor and rocky armor in general are unlikely to perform as well on their own. The Eerie Spell attack might not be a move that most trainers will have to worry about ever seeing, but if placed into a battle against a Galarian Slowking, it is a potentially infuriating move that can weaken even the best of fighters and make them much less capable of using their best moves in battle, with the utilization of attacks with decently high power point reserves and or the careful management of move stamina being the only things that can work to counter the worst this attack has to offer. Considered to be the signature attack of Latias, the Mist Ball attack involves the user combining its natural psychic energy with a fluffy down that covers its body into ball-shaped projectiles that are then fired to inflict damage. The natural down that envelops the body of Latias, aside from being able to naturally refract light and keep them hidden from sight under most circumstances, is actually a source of tremendous energy and can be utilized as a direct form of attack when properly combined with certain types of psychic energy. Latias have learned how to use this to their advantage by taking some of the down that covers them and forcing it into a spherical shape through an applied field of psychic energy. When fired at a target, this down promptly detonates as a result of the instability within the surrounding field, dealing moderate amounts of special damage in the process. Despite not being exceptionally powerful, the combination of the destabilizing psychic field and the natural energy contained within their own down generates a negative response within the damaged target and physically hinders their ability to utilize their special powers, in turn lowering their special attack stat about 50% of the time. The fact that this attack generates this effect so efficiently makes it a danger on any battlefield when the opponent is not a dark type, and should thus be feared extensively for the possible damage it can do initially and as the battle continues on. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the Mist Ball attack. Metallic armor can however help reduce or negate the damage dealt by the attack, but rocky armor is unlikely to do as well on its own. The Mist Ball attack is not tremendously powerful enough to deal significant damage against most opponents, and is unlikely to ever be seen if the opponent does not have a Latias on their team, but the fact that it can easily lower a target's special attack stat nonetheless makes it a dangerous weapon that should be countered with Pokémon possessing sturdy defenses and potentially high special attack stats at all times. Considered to be the signature attack of Latios, the Luster Purge attack involves the user externalizing its abstract psychic thoughts and converting them into a damaging burst of light capable of lowering the opponent's resistance against special attacks. Latios have the unique ability to use their psychic powers to show other Pokémon and people their memories without direct contact in an abstract form. Aside from being an impressive sight, this same ability can actually be inversed and externalized, transferring the light that would normally represent the light in a viewer's mind into an actual light formed from an intense but brief electromagnetic breakdown between the user's psychic powers and the surrounding airspace. In short, the Luster Purge itself is thus a damaging burst of light that inflicts moderate amounts of damage on any target close enough to get struck by it, but this move is much more than just for show. In addition to dealing damage, the light created in this attack can actually create an opposite polarity electromagnetic response within the target that cripples their ability to resist damage from special attacks, and thus can lower their special defense stat about 50% of the time. The fact that this attack generates this effect so efficiently makes it a danger on any battlefield when the opponent is not a dark type, and thus should be feared extensively for the possible damage it can do initially and as the battle continues on. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the Luster Purge attack. Metallic armor can, however, help reduce or negate the damage dealt by this attack, though rocky armor is unlikely to perform as well on its own. The Luster Purge attack is not tremendously powerful enough to deal significant damage against most opponents, and is unlikely to ever be seen if the opponent does not have a Latios on their team, but the fact that it can easily lower target's special defense stat nonetheless makes it a dangerous weapon that should be countered with Pokémon possessing high special defense stats at all times. The roleplay is a relatively rare and highly misunderstood psychic type technique that effectively allows the user to gain the same attributes garnered by the opponent's ability in exchange for their own, working somewhat like a primitive version of skill swap. With the roleplay technique, the user apparently either physically changes its body or otherwise mentally changes it so as to gain the same physical and special benefits the opponent's ability grants them. How this actually happens on a physical or even metaphysical level, however, is still a bit of a mystery. The move works at the expense of the user's own ability, but in tough situations, this strange move can at least help turn the tide and potentially save your hurting Pokémon from a quick defeat in battle. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the roleplay technique. The skill swap technique is still highly misunderstood, and its actual functions are unknown, but its effects in battle are nonetheless drastic and potentially devastating. In using a skill swap technique, the user effectively utilizes psychic power to create an intense energy field around the user and a target that, shortly after forming, transfers the natural attributes of the abilities to each other for the duration of a battle. This strange move might not have much purpose in most cases and can be cumbersome to work with, but when executed properly, it can be the key to making Pokémon like Slaking and Regigigas unbearably powerful creatures that almost nothing will be able to stop in practice. It was for this reason, among its general usefulness as a great defensive move, that led Silph Co to release the move as TM48 within the 3rd and 4th generation line of TMs, but waning interest in the move eventually led to its discontinuation afterwards, until it was reinstated as TR40 in the company's first line of TRs, and as TM48 within the recent Sinnoh Special Edition set before it was eventually discontinued once again, only to make another reappearance as TM98 for the company's 9th generation line of TMs. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the skill swap technique. The Imprison technique is designed to ensure that any opponents on the battlefield are incapable of utilizing the same moves the user has to counteract or otherwise surpass their own personal power. The Imprison itself has a psychic seal that spreads from the user across all opponents on the battlefield. While the move will work regardless of the situation, if any opponent shares a move with the user, the opponent will become incapable of actually using that move. This might not have much use if the user does not have much in common with the opponent, or even a wide variety of moves to work with, but when risking the chances of getting struck by an attack super effective against one's own type, or a debilitating status condition, this move can at the very least limit the chances of the user getting struck by or having to deal with something nasty that it too likes to specialize in, which might explain why it is installed as TM44 in Silph Co's 8th generation line of TMs and TRs, and TM92 in the 9th generation line. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Imprison technique. The Ally Switch technique is a bizarre and relatively pointless move that does very little outside of multi-Pokemon battles in terms of providing an advantage. In an Ally Switch technique, the user employs his teleportation abilities to switch its position with a nearby ally in battle. Although it will completely fail if the user is already in the middle of the battlefield, otherwise not in a multi-Pokemon battle, the Ally Switch technique can prove to be an effective move if a Pokemon on the side of the battlefield needs to be switched to the center or at least to another side, where it can strike all opponents equally on the opposing side of the battlefield. Unfortunately, the move cannot be used to switch a Pokemon in the center position to the sides of the battlefield, and consecutive usage of the move will halve its chances of success for every subsequent successful execution, much like moves like Protect. Despite its limited use, the recent surge in Triple Battle's popularity led Silph Co to release the move as TM51 in the 5th generation line of TMs. However, the surge did not last long enough to keep the move in much use, resulting in its discontinuation from the 6th generation line, though it was eventually reinstated as TR83 for the first line of TRs before being discontinued once more. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Ally Switch technique. The Miracle Eye technique is similar to the Foresight and Odor Sleuth techniques, in that its general purpose is to reveal the location of an opponent and eliminate any changes in evasion that have occurred. In this case, this is done by using unique energy frequency to physically paint or cover the target with a tracking signal that becomes visible to all other creatures only after it strikes the target. However, this unique energy frequency has a far more important function. It can disrupt the opponent's ability to harness anti-positive energy as a defense against psychic energy, in turn making a dark-type opponent vulnerable to damage from psychic-type attacks until the battle ends or they are switched out. In combination with the move's astonishing low stamina cost, this can make the Miracle Eye technique, as semi-rare as it is, a valuable tool that can effectively make any psychic type on the field an unstoppable force whose natural abilities cannot be completely negated by any force in combat. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Miracle Eye technique. That's it for this episode, so stay tuned to the next episode of TM Technical Movement. Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.